Let's talk about real estate magic, which I know is another one that sounds like an oxymoron. What are we talking about? I think it's so important that we utilize some of the things that you've learned with magic, because I do think that real estate and magic have so much in common. And sometimes knowing what you want means knowing what you don't want. And in magic and in real estate, those two things are very, very important. So let's talk about that.
Welcome to the Jennifer J. Hammond Podcast. Jennifer is a licensed realtor, educator, speaker, and best-selling author. Jennifer's goal is to help you find your yay in every day.
Hello. This is Jennifer J. Hammond. And I'm so excited. As you know, I'm always interested in helping with your education, inspiration, and empowerment. And we talk about real estate. Well, you probably heard this one a million times. We're going to talk about magic and real estate. How do those two relate? Well, let's talk to our magician today, Jake Schwartz. He has been a magician for a long time, and he's been known all over the place. So, Jake, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I've been doing magic, believe it or not, since I was 2 years old. I was a super picky eater. And so as a kid, my parents would ask me to make my food disappear. Little did they know, fast forward to now, I do magic full time, and I do it all over the place.
I love that. And it's so funny because you think about how many parents say that. Would you just have your food disappear? And they never thought they would be starting a career for someone.
Yeah, exactly. And, even to the point that a lot of parents ask their kids to make their food disappear, and maybe the broccoli goes to the dog, or maybe it goes in the trash, or whatever the case. I will say I was an honest deceptionist at the time, and still now today, I like to consider that for myself. I really did eat my food. So it worked. It was very mutually beneficial.
It was an honest deceptionist. I don't know if those two go together. But I was the same. Like as a child, there was definitely foods, especially like Brussels sprouts comes to mind, that I absolutely hated. And when my mother said that I had to eat them, they definitely went to the dog.
The dog is eating good. Oh, to be a dog in a middle-class family, and you just get to run in the yard and eat Brussels sprouts out of kids' hands under the table. That's the life.
Exactly. So let's talk about real estate magic, which I know is another one that sounds like an oxymoron. What are we talking about? I think it's so important that we utilize some of the things that you've learned with magic, because I do think that real estate and magic have so much in common. And I have loved magic since I was a little kid. And I hate to say, for me, my first love of magic came, which you probably have heard before from other people, from when my dad reached out behind my ear and would pull out a coin, and I'd be like, oh, wow.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
So let's talk about it. Sometimes knowing what you want means knowing what you don't want. And in magic and in real estate, those two things are very, very important. So let's talk about that.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, like you said, magic is something that really gives people that childlike, oh my God, when the quarter comes out from behind your ear, it's an amazing feeling. And in studying the art of magic for as long and as in depth as I have, I've learned a lot of things that I've been looking in other areas of life as well, because really that's how you make the best art, is by, incorporating so many different other aspects of life. And I was like, wow, people, if they think like a magician, they can do this and this and this. And one of those things was real estate. So for me, knowing what you want and knowing what you don't want are equally as important. When I was coming up and first starting off my magic career, now mind you, this is again, I started when I was 2. So as a kid, you try out different things, right? So I tried, doing magic tricks without talking. I tried setting my act to music. I tried, dark humor, all of these things, which probably lasted a net total of about 3 hours for all of them before I was like, okay, this is not me. This is not what I want to do. I love talking to people, getting to know people. And so in eliminating the things that I knew I wasn't, I found out what I was. And so how does this relate to real estate? Well, whether you're looking to invest or you're looking to buy a home, a lot of people feel so overwhelmed because of the incredible depth and plethora of options that lay before them both. Even if you're just buying a house to live in, like the style, the size, the square footage, the layout, all of these things, the neighborhood, there's so many different options. And so a lot of times people feel overwhelmed and they don't know where to start. And if that's you, I would encourage you to think like a magician and look at all the different options and just cross something out, because crossing something out on your list of what you don't want can be equally sometimes as beneficial as knowing what you do want.
And I think what you said was really important. Like you talk about style. I think that's important for both magic and when you're looking for something to buy, it's really important to understand the style is what's good for you. It doesn't matter what someone else wants or even what the trends are. You know, you think about with magic as well, you'll see some people, as you said, with the dark humor or the ones that are like mimes and they don't speak. It doesn't matter what the trend is. If that's not your style, don't try to be something you're not. Don't try to buy a house that's not you, because you're going to end up regretting it. And it's such a huge financial decision that if you don't understand how to really apply that, I want to call it magical thinking, but that could be misconstrued. But thinking like a magician, it's magical thinking.
Exactly.
It's important to think about, don't try to be somebody you're not, because you won't enjoy it. Right?
Yeah. And a lot of times you'll find that when you do anything in life, people try to push their own perceptions of what they think it should look like onto you. And I don't want to call out, the mother-in-laws of the world, but, oh, make sure you get a yard for my grandkids, or, oh, make sure it's open concept so I can come over and, you can entertain me, like all of these things. But maybe that's not quite you. And like you said, it's such a huge financial decision, especially if you're buying a home as opposed to like more of an investment property. Like you're probably not planning on leaving that place in the short term. It's probably going to be a long-term decision. And ultimately you need to do what's best for you, regardless of what anybody says.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's so important because people, they feel that pressure. And I think that was great. You used mother-in-law as an example. Yeah.
No one can relate to that, right? Yeah.
No, not at all.
Right.
I think it's so important because you have other people who start to, input on your style, on what your decision is in your housing, or even like with you with magic. Oh, no, you shouldn't do any close-up magic. That would be bad. You need to make a building disappear, or whatever somebody else thinks for you. You have to be careful about letting someone else influence what you want. It's good to, like you said before, try the different styles out and go look at the different styles and see what fits you. But then remember, the ultimate decision is yours. You want to be you, as they say.
And the ultimate and the ultimate responsibility is yours too, as well. As much as everybody can talk and tell you what you should do and what you shouldn't do, the bills aren't coming to them. They're coming to you. That mortgage is still going to be yours, finding a renter if it's an investment property, or, flipping that title if that's what you're doing. That's responsibility is on you. So everybody's going to have input. Everybody's always going to have input regardless of what you do. And so you might as well stick to what is best for you.
So let's talk research. So when we compare magic and real estate, I think one thing is the background, the research. Because research is really, really important when you're deciding to buy, where you're going to buy, not only the location, the schools, crimes, I hate to say sexual predators, grocery stores, as we found during the pandemic, making sure you're not in a food desert. All of the research behind it is really important. And as you probably know, nothing in this universe stays the same. So everything's always changing. So it's either getting better or it's getting worse. And so what have you done enough research that you know? And so now you talk about magic. How does that relate in magic?
Yeah, well, as a magician, we try to make everything look impromptu. And especially in this age of social media, people try to make their lives look impromptu. And the best magic seems like it's just off the cuff. But I can tell you, I'll kind of pull back the curtain a little bit here. Pretty much every magic trick you watch is completely not impromptu. It is thought out and planned in advance. And that's what makes the best magic trick. And so as a magician, I need to consider every magic trick I do from every possible angle, whether that means the physical angles of the audience's watching me, where they're going to be watching from and what they're going to see on the right side of the audience versus the left side of the audience versus the back of the audience. But also I need to consider the things and objections and the red flags that are going to come up in the minds of the spectators, because ultimately that's how you fool people. You need to take them on a journey with you. And of course, magic is more than just fooling people, their stories and etc. But by the end of it, they should be almost sort of surprised, I guess, by the ending, or just watching, and they should feel like everything makes sense along the way. And I get the audience to that point by considering the things that are happening in their brains and considering things from every possible angle. Of course, as I'm sure would be obvious at this point to you and your listeners, that's such a great metaphor for life in general. It's so important, whether it's real estate or something else, to consider things that you're talking about, discussing, or looking into from every possible angle, so you can really get a sense of what everyone is thinking, what all of the opinions are on this thing. And like you said, that relates so much to real estate. When you go to buy a house, you need to be thinking about, your trips to the grocery store, your commutes, what that neighborhood is going to be like in the early morning, late at night. Does that relate with what you want? When you move into a house, if you're planning on having people over all the time and bringing in a DJ to your house at 2 a.m, is that going to fly in this neighborhood? Or moreover, if you're looking for something that's a little quieter, are your neighbors doing that? And so these are things that are important to consider. And that's why I would encourage people who are watching this or listening to this, think like a magician. Consider all of the angles, even the angles you would never consider.
That's a great way to put it. I love that, because again, there's always, I want to say there's no surprises, but no surprises to the magician. However, it's all surprises to the observer. So, but the only way that's done is through the research.
And you know what? There's always surprises too. As much as I think that I have planned for everything in a magic trick, there's inevitably that one spectator, even if they're not necessarily a heckler, just by doing something that they feel like makes sense and does make sense that I didn't consider, now I learn more. But you try to do as much as you can. Just like you move into a house, sometimes there's things you could never have known until you moved in there. But that's part of the risk reward. And all you can do is, like I said, try to consider as much information as you possibly can so you can best make a good decision.
Exactly. And I think it's funny because part of that, I think, is expecting the unexpected, because I think the home buying process, as well as even home ownership, is about the unexpected. And so often, like you said, when you're interacting with the crowd, not everybody, you think you've got everything worked out. And part of that, I feel like, is embracing the unexpected and being okay with whatever pops up. Because even in the home when we do a home inspection with a house, so often you discover things that really are unexpected, and they can be very expensive. And so people start to change their mind. I don't know if I want to buy this place. And it's so funny, because what I've realized is, if you just are sure to expect the unexpected and embrace it, regardless of whatever it is, you're going to be just fine, regardless.
Yeah, definitely rolling with the punches is something that is a big part of magic. I've had some crazy things happen to me during shows that I've had to keep going. I've been smacked in the face by a child during a show. We can go into that. But anyway, you're exactly right. Sometimes things pop up, and that doesn't mean that a house is not worth buying, or it doesn't mean that a house is, X, Y, or Z, that you can automatically just smack a label on it because of this, that, or the other. Sometimes as you look more deeply into things, you find out, oh, the homeowner that you had it before me just did this, but I don't do that. So it won't be a problem once I take over, or now I know this. So now moving forward, it won't be a problem. But you're exactly right. You got to, life in general, right? There's going to be punches no matter what that you don't see coming. So it's not about eliminating those, but it's more about, how you can handle them when and if they do come.
So, and as we continue this thought process of think like a magician and how this relates to real estate, timing is everything, right?
Well, yes and no. I say, I'll tell you yes, and I'll kind of give you the magic reason and the real estate reason for and against this. especially if you're an investor in real estate, or you want to use real estate as a means of creating passive income for yourself, whether it just be through appreciation of a property, or, through that cash flow of rent, or whatever the case may be. Timing is everything. And if, like, for instance, right now, I probably don't know that I would invest in something. I would wait till the market dips a little bit in order to start buying up. But that's how people get rich. They buy at the right time and they sell at the right time. And when everybody else is trying to penny pinch, that's when they're buying up properties at an incredible discount. Now with magic, just like with comedy, the joke goes, timing is everything, right? And the pause there is the joke, right? And so with magic, timing is everything too. When I'm in front of an audience, a lot of times people think that the hand is quicker than the eye, and that's how magicians operate. But really, that's not the case at all. There's a really famous saying in magic that comes from, oh my goodness, I know the book, but I don't want to misquote it just in case I'm wrong, but it's in a very famous card book. And the author says that the timing of magic, it doesn't have to be quick when you do the sleight, the secret move. It doesn't have to be quick, but it does have to be smooth. And so what you do is you kind of create a PowerPoint presentation in the minds of the spectators. So they go, okay, I picked a card. I put the card back in the deck, right? Of course, there's other things that happen in between those benchmark moments of the trick, of the routine. And that's when you do your secret move in between those PowerPoint slides. So when the audience looks back on the trick, there's nothing to even remember. And so similarly with real estate, timing and magic is really important in that case. However, I will say it's not everything. It's everything, but it's not everything. If you're looking to buy a home that you live in and you find a house that you love and that you can afford, and the neighborhood's perfect, and everything about this house checks all your boxes, but oh no, the market's doing this, that, like, buy the house, move in, enjoy your life. If you can afford it, if it's the perfect house, if everything lines up, there's really no need to hang your hat and only buy according to what the market says, because every once in a while you do find those perfect deals.
And I would also say that I think that in that same way, the same line of thinking, and I just want to keep calling it magical thinking, which I think could be misconstrued, but the same line of thinking, I think that so often you pick what's right for you right now. And that's not necessarily what the market's doing, up, down, or sideways. And it's not necessarily what other people are doing. And it's so funny, because one of the things that I adopted actually as a New Year's resolution before this, and it was weird because it was 2020. It was the right as we were going into 2020, going into this pandemic that we didn't even know about at the time.
Right. Talk about an unexpected punch.
Yeah, exactly. Woo, an unexpected punch. Very well said. And I decided on, I'm at the right place at the right time right now, and stop always worrying about, oh my gosh, I got to rush to this, or, oh, I need to do this, or I should have done this, or worrying about what I didn't do or what I should have done, or just always that kind of rush that nothing is really what it's supposed to be. And then I just all of a sudden said, I'm actually going to just decide, because I realized that your decision is one of the key things that makes you successful in life, no matter what it is. And I just decided, just like if you're in the middle of a trick, and I'm sure this has probably happened at some point, and something unexpected happened, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm just going to decide that was part of the trick. It was perfect.
Right.
Perfect timing. Of course, that child was supposed to slap you in the face. Of course, it made the trick 10 times better.
Of course.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes imperfect action is better than no action at all. And so we try to make everything perfect. And of course you want to do that. I'm not saying throw caution to the wind and blindly throw a dart at the board and hope it hits. You want to do your best, but ultimately you have to also accept the fact that no matter how hard you try, no matter how much you prepare, get ready, sometimes a child will walk up to you in the middle of your show and smack you in the face. And I can't believe this point keeps coming up. This was not what I expected to talk about at all. But I'm more than happy, hopefully it helps your listeners as well, as we kind of explain these things that we're talking about. But yeah, you're exactly right. Sometimes you just got to go for it.
And one of the other things in real estate that is also similar to magic and thinking like a magician is asking the right questions. Because I know you're whatever your trick is or whatever you're doing, if you don't ask the right question, then there's going to be a problem.
Yeah, well, asking the right question is really important in magic because language is so much a part of what we do, or at least body language. Even if you're doing magic without verbally expressing yourself, there's still language there and there's communication of a message, of course. And so I'll give you a great example. I do a magic trick where I show the spectator 6 cards and I just say, I hand those 6 cards to the spectator and I say, did you see your card? And they'll say, yes. Now that's a different question than if I showed the spectator the 6 cards, handed them those cards and said, is your card in there? Now, for me, at this point in the trick, I do not want the spectator, I'm not ready for them to open up their hands and start looking through the cards yet. So I intentionally ask them, did you see your card? So that they'll say, yeah, I saw it when you just showed it to me, and assume that it's in their hands rather than is your card in your hands right now? Because that's a completely different question. And subconsciously they'll go, oh, well, let me just double check. Right. And so it's the same outcome subconsciously. It's the same point that I'm making in the question that I'm asking, but that little language variation there creates a completely different reaction from the spectator. And so similarly, if you're touring a house, if you're looking for an investment property, especially, then you need to know the right questions to ask. And sometimes knowing the right questions to ask means admitting that you don't know the right questions to ask. And so it can be really important. Like you said, you get the houses inspected and you find things that you never even would consider before. Talk to your real estate agent, talk to an inspector, make sure the house gets inspected. I'm trying to think what else. Talk with your financial people, make sure that this is something that you can actually afford after closing costs, after, all of these other fees and taxes and everything that comes into buying a house. And you want to make sure that you know what questions to ask. And part of that can be having the right people on your side.
Exactly. And I think it's very well said. And sometimes you need others to help you ask the right questions because you might not even know the right questions to ask. And I think that that's critical with real estate is continuing to ask questions. And you said it before, which I also thought was very well said, is you may not know the right questions to ask, but also not being afraid to say you don't know the right question to ask. I think one of my favorite things meeting with clients for the first time is, I don't care if you ask me the same question over and over and over, because I want you to actually really understand it. And we're talking about going into real estate, which is actually another language. It's a technical language. It goes into the legal language, and it goes all the way back to Latin words that make no sense to most people. So ask questions and don't be afraid to be embarrassed that you didn't know the answer. Who cares? Just ask and ask until you finally get it and you can really demonstrate that you understand it. Because if you don't understand it, you're not going to be able to apply it. And I think that's probably also true with magic as well. If you don't understand fully a trick, you haven't asked enough questions, you're not going to actually, the doing this part of it is completely gone if you haven't asked enough questions and really understood it enough to actually go into action. Right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, acknowledging that any good real estate agent, any good accountant, any good inspector is on your side. They want you to find the best deal, the right home for you. And so admitting that maybe you don't know everything is really, really helpful in order to get everybody across the finish line. And it's something, another thing that I think we might have been planning on talking about a little later, but I'll say it right now, is that if you're not learning, you're losing, just generally in life. And part of the cool thing about magic, I think, is that the first step to learning or creating a good magic trick is having a desired effect in mind, right? So maybe I want to make something vanish. But the first step in doing that is admitting I don't know how to do that thing. So I need to open a book. I need to, either go learn from another magician or whatever the case may be, where someone will teach me how to make that thing vanish or appear or whatever the case may be. But that first step is so important, and people get, their egos get the better of them. But you'll find that when you admit that you don't know something and you take that first step, that is the first step to then learning it. And that's the quickest way to then eventually knowing that thing. And once you know it, you know it.
Exactly. Well, and you're right. We're already out of time. But Jake, I want you to tell people, how do they find out more about you?
Yeah, wow, that was a lot of fun. That went super fast.
So fast.
I know. Well, people can find me on my social medias at The Magic of Jake Schwartz, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I post weekly magic videos and life tips, just like what you heard here on the podcast. You can also, if you want to book me directly, you can go to my website at www.jakeofspades.com. Almost like Jack of Spades, except my name's Jake. So jakeofspades.com.
Wonderful. And as you know, I like to end every one of the episodes with asking you, will you lift your voice and say yay with me?
Absolutely.
Okay, 3, 2, 1.
Yay!